4 entries from the personal journal of Anton West. I finally managed to reach the dead moon. Getting to it took around 2 days, and because of that, I could only stay for around 12 hours before I had to start getting back. I wish I could find a way to extend how long I can keep up the oxygen flow on my fast ship, but that seems impossible unless I get better and newer parts soon. The moon was very small and clearly had shrunk ever since it had died. No wonder it is no longer visible to Illyria, much less Arnon. I managed to tether my ship into its ground. Its surface was very hard and I nearly broke my hand cracking through it. But after I did, I found that the inside was sludge-like, almost as though it had melted, although it wasn't warm at all. Just dead soft ground. All of the buildings that had once been built on the moon had long ago fallen and faded away, except for one. What I assume was once either a church or a very fancy home still had some of its foundation standing. The material of the building was rock from Anarinon, which could explain how it hadn't fallen to the same decay as everything else. From my research, I know that the forests once littered the moon and that it was from them and the natural rock of the moon settlements had been built. The original name of this moon, the one that has since been erased from history, was apparently given due to the trees that had grown here once. I have not found this name anywhere despite how hard I have looked. Now back to the only building left. I have done my best to sketch out the outline of the building, although from memory, since I didn't have room for drawing materials on the expedition. It had a large walled garden and downstairs with at least 5 rooms. Given that there were the remnants of a staircase, I assumed that the building had at least 2 stories. Nothing from these other levels exists anymore, however, since this building was so large. I've no doubt that it was built for someone of wealth. Perhaps if I had access to records on Aranon, I could try to find out who had once owned and commissioned the building. Through this connection, I might be able to find more records of the dead moon. Of course, right now going to Aranon is an impossibility, so I will once more try to hack into different library systems. I still have maintained my connection through Keaton Estate's computer, so as long as that one stays in contact, I should be able to continue as I have. Although I need to do some repairs on my antennas, as the lags have increased even from how slow my computers have originally been. I'll do this after I've finished eating. My tomato plants continue to grow well, and so does the spinach. I still despise its taste, however, and will continue trying to change it. Sadly, I found nothing that could serve for food on the dead moon. I am not too surprised, but I suppose I did hold up some hope. It's been a long time since I've had anything different from my diet here. I think I'll go to hideout again soon, since I did get some litter that I could barter there in exchange for fresh meat. Let's see, I found half of a handheld mirror. The glass is shattered, but I should be able to fix it no problem. 2 different animal pelts, although one had deteriorated so much that when I tried to lift it, it turned to dust. The other one I will do my best to clean and cut out any unsalvageable parts. Also cutlery, which I am certain is at least 70% made of Arinonian silver because of how well it has survived. There's some letters inscribed on them, but I can quickly get rid of them and present the cutlery as new. I think I have found what were once musical recordings. These I might keep to myself to try and see if I could make them work on my stereo devices. Music certainly would help me stay sane better. Also have a globe, which I think was actually representing Illyria instead of Aranon. For that one I will actually try to add in the missing half. After all, I have a great view of the original moon it is based on. That one I think should fetch a particularly good price. So, overall, not a bad amount of booty at all. It was sad visiting the moon though, as I found absolutely nothing alive. I don't think I've ever seen such a passive... What in the stars? I will finish later, something just... I have found a man, or rescued him I suppose, since I think I have managed to stabilize him. He was inside an escape pod and the escape pod was on fire. On the pod with him was also half of some other man, although not only had the lower half of this man been detached, he had also burned nearly to a crisp. What was left of him was a skeleton with some skin and muscle attached. The man, the one I hope is still alive, was wearing a suit with a helmet that was still pumping some oxygen for him. Not much, however, which in part explained why the man wasn't conscious. Well, he still isn't, but I have some hopes that he'll come to. Already he's looking far less purple than he was when I pulled him out of the pod. There are some cuts and bruises that I've patched up, and also I have taken the liberty to take him out of his spacesuit and put him into one of my pairs of pajamas. For his comfort, of course, but also his uniform was curious. So I have examined all of it. The logo on his chest is a diamond with a small plant inside of it, running through image search, and after waiting for 10 minutes, revealed to me that it is the logo of something called the Tennis Corporation. I think that I may have once heard of this, perhaps at Hideout, although right now I cannot recall what or rather who they are. Perhaps miners, given the diamond? Miners who mine plants. That doesn't really make sense for how white the uniform is, however, as it is in pretty pristine condition, apart from the more recent damage. I couldn't see the original ship from which the escape pod had detached from, but given its on-fire state, I doubt that much of the original ship is left existing. It is something of a miracle that even this has survived. However, since the man was still alive, I don't think the pod could have made the journey that far, especially since it was on fire. I have attached the remains of the pod. I managed to put out the fire with a rope and have rummaged through it. Good thing, I now have several new parts and materials with which to update my satellite. While most of the pod was damaged, those parts that were salvageable will be very useful. The technology of the pod is even more up to date than most of the expensive stuff I've managed to get at Hideout. I will use some parts, save some others, and sell those that I think I'll never need myself. My next visit to Hideout will make me a very rich man indeed, I think. Well, that'll be good, since should this man survive, I'll need to buy medicine for him as well. I do hope that he will live. He must, for he's the first person I've been able to talk to face to face in... Oh, I need to check. It has just passed 7 years since I left Illyria. Just now it didn't feel like it had been that long. Well, sometimes it feels even longer than that. I have managed to make such a life and routine for myself here that the past life that I had doesn't always feel like part of my own reality. I don't think that I am lonely, however. I mean, this journal helps a lot, and I do see people at the Hideout. Not that anyone knows about my true identity there, well, no one knows anyone's real selves at the Hideout. Oh, what I do know is this man's identity. Well, I would if I were able to read the language that his name tag is in. I'm currently running a translation scan, which has been taking a long while. The upper part, which I think had the name written in the common galactical tongue, given that I can recognize some letters, has burned off, so that doesn't tell me much. What other things should I note down about this man? He looks youngish, perhaps only a few years younger than me. Well, hopefully his crash and all that hasn't messed with his memory, and he'll be able to tell me himself soon. He looks quite strong, shorter than me, however, and has some tattoos on his back. They are all strange lines, maybe a family tree. His eyes are green. I took the liberty of opening them in my medical examination of him. And, well, he is handsome, I should note, just in case. Oh, my spinach is ready. It's been 3 days now since I've saved the man from the burning pod, and I have been doing well in recording everything. He woke up about 12 hours after I first brought him on board my satellite. While at first he was very shocked and worried that I was going to kill him, I managed to get him to calm down. Also, since I didn't know whether he had ties to the Arenonian Federation, I have had to keep my face coverings on inside the satellite as well. It is very uncomfortable, but I do not yet know whether I can trust him. I hope that I can, but I need more time, I think. For now, we have agreed that he may stay with me while he heals from his wounds on the condition that he helps me with what he can. He is exceedingly clever and well-educated and has practically taken over my plans and cooking for both of us, so I cannot complain. It is very easy being around him. His disposition is relaxed, well, at least now that he has become accustomed to my helmet, and even witty at times. Well, the most important part for this specific journal entry is that he gave me his life story to write down. Now, I am aware that he may not have been 100% honest with me. I, after all, have no one to check with what he's told me. But I really want to believe him, and what he's told me does make a lot of sense. So here goes my transcription of the tale I was told. My name is Vivi Messas, and I was born on the planet of Kiskes 22 years ago. My father, Bert, was a biologist and joined the Tennis Corporation when he was 18 years old. You do know who the Tennis Corp are, yes? More or less? Well, it will become clearer as I explain. After his 2 years of training, my father was enlisted onto a team of scientists that stayed on our home planet examining new plants and species brought in from across the galaxy. My father is a very determined and single-minded person, and for years he simply worked and worked. And as he did, he rose up higher in positions of the corporation, eventually coming to lead his own team. It was through his revitalizing of cyber squirrels, a previously endangered species from the planet OI-88, that he caught the attention of many on the board of leaders of the tennis corporation. This included Vivi Messas, a descendant of one of the leaders of the corp. The two soon got to working together, and while for years they remained professional, eventually romantic feelings developed. Viola's family was somewhat opposed to her marrying a random, although talented biologist, but the pair did not care and got together anyway. Eventually, I was born alongside my twin sister Vivi. While it wasn't inevitable for us to also become entwined in the corporation, I suppose our constant exposure to our parents' work and research influenced our lives a lot. By 10 years old, we were both convinced that we would follow in our parents' footsteps. We grew up in the capital of Kiskes, basically at the tennis corp. Our schooling was done at an academy with a branch sponsored by the corp, and all our friends were also aspirants to the corp. Vivi was the brains between us, constantly reading and absorbing every possible morsel of knowledge. Not that I am not academically minded, but what drew me in more was the potential for exploration. I suppose that while Vivi read the textbooks, I focused on novels. I have also always been more physically talented than Vivi, actually caring about exercise and gymnastics. I led our high school gymnastics troupe. Well, at 18 we of course joined the corp and completed our 2 years of training. Vivi specialized in geography and for her final project won an Excellency Award. She basically drew up a map of an area in the north of Kiskes which previously had been difficult to track down because its borders kept shifting due to electric storms. And well, my final project was organizing all of our research trips and keeping Vivi safe while she did all her work. Together, because of how natural our teamwork is, we got chosen for the crew of the Heart of Ellis. Typically, recent graduates need to work some more years before being allowed on long-distance ships, but we were considered exceptional due to our skills and our parentage. I do not pretend that it is a coincidence that our mother is close with the captain of the Heart. During our first year and a half, we went on several missions not too far from the Triarchy, and we got excellent results, mainly focusing on different natural liquids on planets, and we even managed to save one dying sea. Given how good our work had been as a crew, and really we did work very well, half a year ago we were finally given a long-distance mission of higher importance, one which required a delicate crew. Our mission was stated to be an expedition to the Belt 17 system where we would investigate on some asteroids. However, there was a hidden truer mission which was only told to the captain, and the captain confided in me as I was his second in command. Apparently, what we truly had to do, as requested by the Belt 17 system leaders, was ensure that one of the asteroids be neutralized. Something inside of it, some liquid I assume since our specific crew was called, was becoming increasingly dangerous. However, given the potential danger and urgency of the mission, not to mention the mythological importance of these asteroids, the mission had to publicly be seen as less than it actually was. I was planning on telling Vivi at some point about the truth, as we never keep secrets between us. Or kept, I suppose. 8 days after our departure from the Tennis Corporation headquarters, our ship was attacked. It was all very fast and violent, and due to what I suffered, it is now a blur in my mind. I think it might have been pirates. As far as I know, we do not have many people against us, much less enemies who would attack Tennis missions. Nevertheless, during the attack, me and Vivi made our way to the escape pod. I don't actually remember this, but I know I wouldn't have left her behind. And well, you have seen the wreckage of the ship. Clearly it was sliced in half by some sort of weapon, a sword, I guess, and we got separated. Are you absolutely sure you haven't seen the other part of the pod anywhere? Can you look? I mean, we can go look together, of course. This all isn't on you. If anything, you've been very accommodating to me, and I cannot thank you enough. It is only that I need to find Vivi. I refuse to go home without her. I could never forgive myself. I am her older brother by a minute only, but still. And she is the one who can truly make a difference in this galaxy. She has the potential. I am just one more well-trained officer. I think that this brings me to the end of my story for now, I suppose. 3 days ago, I woke up and have been kept alive thanks to you, Anton. After this long explanation, Seb fell asleep very quickly. I can't blame him, and if anything, was happy that I could now ponder on all that he told me. While he did his best to hide it, the man was about to cry when talking about his sister. But I do fear that I must disappoint him, as I found no trace of anyone else from his ship. The best we can do for now is survive and maybe try our luck at hideout. And unlike Seb, I am certain that the people attacking the Heart were pirates. At least if it was of the same caliber as the escape pod, which it must have been. The Tennis Corporation should have been better prepared to reach these parts, as technology of such high level is difficult to find here, and those who do get access to it have to do it either through exuberant wealth or crime. And for the poor crew of the Heart of Ellis, they had to face one of the many pirate crews hanging around the solar system. I'll have to disguise Seb as someone not from the Tennis people if I take him with me to hideout. For all I know, we'll find one of the pirates that attacked him, if any of them survived. I can think of several pirate crews myself who would not have been deterred by the politically neutral status of his ship. Seb's story is so different from my own. I can't help but be envious, such an idyllic family and such a clear and good direction for what to do with his life. How would he even react if I were to tell him the truth of my life here? Or rather, why I live up here all alone? For now, he hasn't directly asked me anything, and given how quick his mind is, I don't doubt that he already has several theories trying to work me out. How have I forgotten to record everything in 2 weeks? Well, I'll try to be as brief as I can. Seb continued to get better consistently, and about 5 days after I had originally rescued him, he came with me to go search through an abandoned satellite not too far from me. That one hit my radar suddenly, and Seb insisted that he was well enough to join me, so I didn't fight back. He is a bit shorter than me, so the suit I borrowed him was a bit loose, but we made do. He has also been doing his best to repair his original tennis uniform, although I have nothing as purely white as his original fabric. He has also given me bits from the fabric which are completely unsalvageable, so that if I want to, I can examine them. I probably should, since Seb told me that his uniform is supposedly 80% fireproof, very stretchy, and also made of fibers grown on his own planet. I haven't really had time to examine anything yet, but I do believe him. It's a miracle that even as much of his uniform and him survived, given how much fire had destroyed the escape pod. On him he also had a gun, which together we managed to get back to its original well-working state, and also a recording device / small computer thing that he called a parch. We even managed to recharge it, although Seb found that he had no signal on the machine. If he has started a diary as well, I haven't noticed, although I do sleep very deeply. Well, it was good for us to be armed when we got to the abandoned satellite, as it was crawling with the neon rats. Seb was initially opposed to us shooting all of them, but when one jumped on his helmet and nearly broke through with its teeth, he was quick to end one and any near him. We got through the horde in half an hour, I think, and I strictly forbade Seb from taking a rat corpse back with us. I will not have my home contaminated. Again. Well, on the satellite we found diaries and logs. Need to go through those at some point for any information about Illyria's current state. Some frozen food storage, score, and finally 4 spacesuits in nearly perfect condition. These ones were locked away in the wardrobes of the living pod in the satellite that we had to force our way inside. I probably wouldn't have managed to do that without Seb, so I really became thankful for his presence in that moment. Well, after taking all that we could, we got back to my satellite and had dinner out of the last frozen goods found. I don't actually remember the last time I had baked goods, and I had to control myself not to eat all of them. Seb told me that in his hometown there is a specialty, and he drew me a picture to demonstrate it better. Apparently it is a sort of bun with raisins made out of special grapes grown only at the Triarchy. It sounded delicious, which is only too bad as I'll never be able to try one. The next few days after that continued with the routine we've established for ourselves. And then 3 days ago, Seb finally asked me when we could get more information about his sister. I had let slip that hideout exists previously, and he'd been doing his best to get more out of me. He's very persuasive when he wants to, and well, I didn't really see any danger in telling him. He mulled over the things I told him for some days, clearly evaluating whether going to a criminal outpost was morally acceptable, even if it was the only option, and he came to the conclusion that yes, it was worth it. I needed a day to set up everything and also decide myself whether we should actually go, both of us. Hideout has accepted me because of how non-disruptive I have been for years. Poking into the business of pirate gangs is decidedly not that. Maybe I am finally losing my mind. We left and made the one-day journey to Hideout. As always, we stayed with Magda, who gave Seb interested looks and me curious glances. I paid her enough to remain passive, however. After doing my usual business, bartering, selling, and buying at night, we made it to the pub. It was full as usual for this time of year, since rich ships take off for the end-of-the-year voyages, and at first we simply observed the room. Even as Seb had been recovering his memories of the attack and the crash, he did not seem to recognize anyone who could have been part of the pirates that attacked. That is, until one man was punched by another and he crashed against our table. His entire body was horrifically burned and scarred, and his eyes were glazed over with drink. Seb immediately stood to action, his eyes focusing on the gun strapped to the man's arm. It was identical to his one, although the tennis lock had been scraped off. The drunk got up, and seeing the opportunity, I pretended to be a friend and managed to drag him outside the pub before his foe punched him once more. Then me and Seb roughly asked the fiend some questions, took his gun, and left him to try and get up despite his state. Turns out, yes, he had been one of the pirates to attack the Heart, and no, he didn't know if anyone else had survived, pirate or officer of the ship. I don't think these answers pleased Seb very much, but I brought up that one more survivor meant that even more could exist, including his sister. After spending the night there, we got back home. We did our daily tasks, as we have been doing, although Seb was far more quiet than usual. Since it's in his nature to think, and if anything, to overthink, I let him do so, and he brought up what he wanted to talk about during dinner. Illyria is the closest possible place for Vivi to have possibly landed, and so it makes sense for it to be his next place of exploration. Since he has arrived, I think I've become worse at hiding my emotions, and still I agreed that if his sister had possibly survived, Illyria would be the place to go. And then I did possibly the stupidest thing I've done in the 7 years I've spent alone on this satellite. I told Seb that I would join him and help him in Illyria, all on the condition that he never asked me about my past in Illyria.